What's up, gangsters? How about 10 minutes of random? Okay, here we go. So, since my last installment of 10 minutes of random, I've been doing a lot of work on my Stumpy robot, and you can see that I've got all my sub-assemblies and priming done. And the primer is Stynylrez, Res, which I really like for stuff like this because I have a nice rust base mixed up, which is just a combination of their sort of orange, red rust and black to make it a little darker brown. And it's good for anything that involves a lot of nooks and crannies because it doesn't dust the way a lacquer primer sometimes will. You may also notice that it has a glossy finish. That's because it's got a heavy layer of aqua gloss on it. And the reason that I do that is not because I'm suddenly straying away from my adherence to the fewest gloss coats possible, but because I'm going to be using MRP for the color coat on this. And I have found that for whatever reason, MRP sticks like crazy to Stynylrez, and it makes chipping very difficult. And the aqua gloss helps that without making the chipping so easy that it becomes uncontrollable. So that's why they're shiny. Also, Stompy Robot is going to get a friend. This is another Machine & Krieger kit, and you can see some legs and a torso and things there. This is the Raptor, which is one of their bipedal things. It's supposed to have a person in it, but it's like anatomically impossible, so I don't know how that's going to work out. But anyhow, I've just been doing some assembly work and a little bit of body work on that. You can see, like on this foot, that I have filled that seam a little bit with my favorite sprue goo, which, if you're not familiar, is just dissolved styrene in Tamiya Extra Thin. I like to use a combination of Hasegawa and Tamiya plastic for it because that's good hard plastic, and it makes it really nice and easy to file and sand. And I also add a little bit of green lacquer paint to it so that it's more visible, easier to see. And I just finished up a bottle of Tamiya Extra Thin, and it had like a 1/4 inch left in it, so I dumped that in here because this was getting a little stringy. People sometimes ask, what's the magic ratio? And I don't know. But what I do know is that you don't want it to leave strings whenever you lift the brush out of the bottle. So what I always try to do is thin it down enough to where it's, still thick enough to do its job, but it will not leave strings trailing from the bottle when you lift the brush out like that. So what I do when I make it is I just start adding extra thin and sprue, and let it dissolve for a few days and check it, and when it quits being stringy, then it's good. And if it gets stringy later on because some of the lacquer or the solvents evaporate, then I just add some more. Anyway, I've also been making some videos. I made a video last week about how to polish a canopy because that was a question that came up in SMCG. So if you want to check that out, that's the canopy that resulted from that exercise. And what you don't know is that this was covered with 3 or 4 layers of paint because it was used as a mask at one time. It's an extra from the Tamiya Mustang kit. So that was quite a little exercise. Speaking of videos, I'm going to do another one soon. I'm going to test out some stuff. I got really curious and decided to order up a bunch of decal setting solutions from my best supplier and good friend, Matt Bull at Hobby World USA, because people are always talking about these different ones, and I tend to only use Microset. If the decals are cooperative enough that it'll handle it, and if they want to talk back, I use Solvaset, and that's always been enough for me. But I've been curious and I like to test stuff, so I thought, what the hell. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to test all those yet, but hopefully it will be useful. Now today on SMCG, somebody asked what kind of tools should I get for my Proxxon. He's getting ready to purchase a Proxxon Micromote. I never know how to say it. Anyway, he's going to get one of these, and he wants to know what kind of tools to get. Well, dental tools are fantastic. There's one in there right now. Get these free from your local tooth jerker. They usually have lots of them left over. When they're expired for them, they still have lots and lots of life left in them for us. And my dentist gave me like a little box with probably 100 of the damn things in there, and they've proven to be really useful. You can see that I have several different sizes and configurations in there for doing whatever I need to do. Ignore these things. They're sanders that I thought might be cool at one time, but they don't really work the way I'd hope they would. What I do use all the time, though, I use these burrs. These are just your standard burrs that you can get for Dremels, and they're good for just hogging out lots of material. Don't let anybody tell you that 5,000 RPM is too fast and it'll melt plastic, because it won't as long as your tools are sharp and you're not using a lot of pressure. And what happens when you don't have sharp tools? You have to use a lot of pressure. So that's when things start to get melty. I've got a video on my channel where I show running it up to like 20,000 and not melting anything. You also need one of these, probably, an abrasive cutoff disc. Those are handy. Now, if you're going to work in white metal, I found when I started my Brough Superior kit that's all white metal, that these things right here are super cool. I can't remember exactly where I got these, eBay or Amazon, but they are fantastic. They're basically just Scotch-Brite wheels. They come with 4 different grits in the package, and I can't remember what how they go, but it's basically a coarse, medium, fine type thing. Then some yellow cotton buffing wheels. That's what I use for things like polishing this canopy. And I use those with rouges, jeweler's rouge. I use one called Zam that I like really well for stuff like polishing canopies. You can also use those for polishing clear coats with, like if you're going to polish out a 2K clear urethane gloss, you can use those as well. But one of the SMCG guys recommended these. These are kind of a woolly thing, and they seem to work a little bit better. At least he thinks they do. I'm not sure I can tell the difference, but they work just as good anyway for using liquid polishing compounds like the ones from Gravity or Tamiya. Novus is one. Scholl is a professional automotive brand of polishing compounds that I've been using, and it works really good. But obviously, with liquid or paste polishing compounds, you're going to sling the stuff everywhere. You will make a mess, and that's one reason why I use rouges as much as possible, because they don't provide quite as high a resolution of a finish as polishing compounds, but for something like a canopy or other clear parts, they work just as good. For white metal, this is another thing that I discovered that are really awesome. These are called brownies and greenies, and I got this little set. They're called Shofu. That's the company that makes them. It's a Japanese company. But anyway, these Shofu brownies and greenies, your dentist also probably uses these, although in different shapes, and they are phenomenal for polishing white metal parts. So hopefully that kind of covers the range and will help that guy answer his question about what kind of gizmos that he needs to get for his Proxxon. One other quick question I wanted to answer off of my YouTube channel was about Mac valves. But I only have like 30 seconds left to answer it, so maybe I'll come back to it next time. I'll just say this: that's a Mac valve. It does not control pressure like some people think. It controls airflow, and where it's useful is for effects like stippling. If you close it all the way down to where you have hardly any flow, you'll see that paint just kind of spits out in a splatter pattern. And that can be really useful for weathering effects. That's honestly about the only reason that I ever adjust my Mac valve. I also have one on the hose that I got as part of testing all of this Grex airbrush stuff. And you can see that Mac valve does the same thing. Doesn't matter if it's down here or if it's up here, does the same thing. Just controls the flow rate, and they both work equally well. So there you go. That's 10 minutes and 24 seconds. That's enough. Bye.